Today, Apple had their big spring iPad event, and they announced a handful of new iPads, but what I think is most interesting is the Apple Pencil Pro. So I'm going to talk about all those iPads, but I really want to dive into what this Pencil Pro is doing, because ever since Apple figured out how to magnetically attach an iPad to charge and pair to the side of the Pro, they kind of perfected the Apple Pencil thing. But now they're trying to innovate a little bit, borrow some stuff from over here, borrow some stuff from over there, and make a better pencil. The main thing they're adding in here is a squeeze the barrel feature. By doing this, it brings up a new tool palette, and it sounds like app developers can go in, change, develop, and use their own tool palettes if they want to. This kind of reminds me of what Samsung does with the S Pen. When you push the button along the side, it brings up the Notes app and some of the scribble features that come along with the pen. For artists, what's kind of interesting is they've also added a gyroscope into the barrel. Apple had John Kuda, who is the CEO of Procreate, come in and talk about Procreate Dreams and some of the ways that they're using that feature. Some of the interesting things that you could do with pen lines and rotation and different stuff that you could do with brushes that you couldn't do before. The other thing that's really interesting about this pen is they've added a haptic engine in the base kind of along the back. Now, the Surface Slim Pen 2 did something similar a few years ago. When you were drawing with that on the screen, there was a little bit of haptic feedback. So even if you were on a really smooth glass screen, it was trying to just wiggle the pen a tiny bit to make it feel like you were on a rougher surface. It doesn't actually give you more control, but it feels like it gives you more control. It's kind of interesting. I'm curious to see how or what Apple ends up doing with that haptic engine, or if they let developers try different things with it. Throughout the presentation, I kept waiting for Apple to unveil the price. Now, the good news here is this pen is starting at $130. It's still a lot of money for basically a stylus, but that's also the same price as the Apple Pencil Gen 2 was. Now, one of the features that is changing on the iPads is that you're changing the camera orientation from portrait to landscape. This is fantastic if you've ever done a Zoom call on an iPad. You're looking to the side, it's this weird angle. This is a change that the entry-level iPad made last year, but they also had to make some compromises when they made that change. The main compromise is that entry-level iPad works with that first-gen Apple Pencil. It doesn't magnetically snap along the side because there was a camera there where the charging pairing mechanism was. So for the new iPad Air, iPad Pro, they had to design a charging mechanism that worked around that camera module that is now where that charger used to be. That's probably why, looking at Apple's website, this new Apple Pencil Pro only works on the brand new iPads that were announced today, whether it's the Air with the M2 chip or whether it's the new Pros with the M4 processor. In fact, looking at Apple's website and looking at their Apple Pencil lineup, it's getting a little bit convoluted. This was something I said in the fall when they introduced their new entry-level Apple Pencil that doesn't have any pressure sensitivity or anything. This is going to lead to a lot of confusion, a lot of returned Apple Pencils. We'll see what happens. But I'm really curious to get my hands on this new Apple Pencil and test it out. Now, iPads. iPad Air is pretty much the same as it was before. They've just gone from the M1 processor over to the M2 processor, a nice spec bump. But we're also getting a 13-inch iPad Air as well. And it's looking to be like that 13-inch iPad Air is very, very, very similar to the last generation 12.9-inch iPad Pro. There are some changes like that camera orientation I mentioned before. This does not work with the second-gen Apple Pencil. It works with the new Pro Pencil. I'm curious to see what the refresh rate is on that screen and to see if it is a mini LED display or if it's just a standard LED display. Time will tell. Curious to get my hands on it and try it. But even those LED displays that Apple was putting out for the iPad Air were very nice LED displays. The 11-inch Air is still starting at $599, $600. And the 13-inch Air is now starting at $799, around $800. I think that's going to be a great entry point for a lot of pros. That's going to be plenty enough power to run Procreate Dreams, any drawing program that you need. That's going to do it well. It's just going to matter if you want that higher end OLED screen that's coming into the iPad Pro. So let's talk about the pros. Yes, it now has an OLED screen. They're calling this a tandem OLED screen. They said that it was taking two OLED screens and putting it on top of each other so you get more brightness. You're getting over 1,000 nits of brightness, 1,600 nits of peak HDR brightness. They've also made these iPad Pros even thinner. This is a little worrisome. Even Marques Brownlee said in his tweet when he first saw it, what could go wrong? The 13-inch iPad Pro is coming in at 5.1 millimeters millimeters thin. This is the first Apple product ever with the M4 processor. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw an update to some of the MacBook Pros this summer, just like a press release update, updating those processors. But it's kind of cool to see this come to the iPad first. I have here the M2 iPad Pro. This is the most recent one before the updates today, and honestly, I have not even come close to maxing out what this thing can do from a processor standpoint. I have all the layers in Procreate I could ever want. Animation programs run smooth. They did update Final Cut Pro. They showed off some of the new features there. Those are some of the things that might take advantage of the processing power that we have available to us. But for most artists and illustrators, it's nice to have an M4. It's nice to have the spec bump, but you're not going to absolutely need it. Now, one thing that you might want, and I'm hoping I can test out, is they're also introducing an option for the iPad where you can get a nano glass etched coating. Coating is probably the word because it's actually an etched glass option on the screen. iPad screens are glossy. I've always put screen protectors on them. So I really want to use this. If it has that texture to it with an Apple Pencil, this could be amazing. Very excited about that. Very excited to see what the drawing experience there. Hopefully it's not too expensive. In my dreams, it would be a checkbox and it would be a free update, just an option there. I have a feeling it's probably going to cost $100, $200 extra. But anyway, gonna try it out. Gonna see what it's like and see how durable it is. The last note on those iPad Pros is the price. It's going up. It's not going up as much as some of the rumors had it going up, but the prices are going up. I believe before the 11-inch Pro started at $799. Now it's starting at $999. The 12.9-inch iPad used to start at $1,000. It's going up to $1,300. So it's a $300 price increase. So yeah, that was the iPad event. I'm excited to get my hands on these. What do you guys think? Let me know down below in the comments.
If you are interested in learning to draw, whether it's the style that I'm using in my comic and how I color and that sort of thing, I have an Introduction to Digital Art course over on my website for that. And also I have a Learn to Draw in 60-Day course, separate course where for 60 days there's new lessons where we learn about perspective and line drawing and all that kind of fun stuff, drawing backgrounds, people. You can check out more on my website, bradsartschool.com. Anyway, back to how this pen is performing for us.